How's it, guys? Welcome to my channel, Crawling with Curiosity, where I'll be documenting my first steps and progression in tarantula husbandry and care, and in creating and filming my first ever YouTube content. My aim is to help you experience what it is like to first start out in the hobby, sharing the frustrations, confusion and joys of keeping your first pet tarantulas, and using this platform as a way for you to access any tips, advice and information I pick up along the way. And with that out the way, let's start with the introductions. First up is my Lasiodora klugi, common name Bahia Scarlet bird-eating tarantula, named Malvolio. Then my favorite species, the Albopilosus, the Venezuelan Suntiger, with a very original name, Fine. Next up is Moe the Tliltocatl albopilosus, previously known as the Brachypelma albopilosus. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows the common name for this hobby staple is the curly hair. Last but not least, we have Mike Shinoda, the LP. Like the namesake from Linkin Park, my favorite band. Mike is a Lasiodora parahybana, Brazilian salmon-pink bird-eating tarantula. You might think it a bit weird for me to start a YouTube channel only having 4 tarantulas, but I have tried to be responsible, tried to listen to some of the other people that are out there. I'm not getting too many slings and starting off running, but rather to start off crawling, find my feet. So now let's get started with the first of our rehousings for today. So we're starting off with Moe, curly hair, Tliltocatl albopilosus, otherwise known, or used to be known as the Brachypelma albopilosus. Now this part really surprised me. I thought even as slings they were just going to be plain brown spiders. But with that round black patch of urticating hairs on its abdomen and that shiny, almost oily looking carapace, they do actually have a unique look to them. Now for this rehousing, I'm really using nothing spectacular. I didn't really break the bank or anything. I just got a bag of what they call in South Africa spider peat for $40. Not really that expensive. Then you'll see a little bottle cap from a Sprite bottle. Using that for a water dish, and a bit of pork from a pork bark tree that I have outside. Should act as a good hide for us. Then as far as the glass container is concerned, I was quite fortunate when I picked up my Lasiodora klugi. That's what it came in, and that was way too small for it. But this should be a decent enough size for Moe. See, it's sort of like a handmade thing, somebody made out of silicone and glass. But that should work perfect for what we intend to use it for, which is just a little belly hair sling. Okay, so just using a plastic spoon from some takeaways, I'm scooping in a little bit of that spider peat. Obviously you have to start with your substrate. I mean, you can basically use most of the stuff that people would recommend. You can use whatever is readily available to you. It doesn't have to be something super expensive. And at the end of the day, it's just got to be good enough to hold the burrow for the spider, something that can hold some humidity or moisture. So this is just another tool in your arsenal that you have besides the water dish to stop the tarantula from drying out, especially when it comes to slings. All of the research that I've done, everything that I've looked at, shown that they're missing sort of a cuticle layer that would keep in moisture as it does with the older tarantulas. So they are, I wouldn't say that they're moisture dependent or anything like that, but they do rely on a higher humidity, or at least having a good source of water to prevent themselves from drying out. They do get a lot of the humidity from the prey that they eat, but it is still necessary to ensure that they have enough moisture. Using my amazing skills at improvising, but not being able to think things through clearly. See at the back, I'm using the bottle cap just to press down the substrate. This is quite an important step. If you don't compress it enough, there is a high likelihood that the burrows or whatever they do dig might collapse in on them. So just push it down, not too hard that they can't dig, but just enough that it is sort of solid for them to dig. Whatever they dig in there will be able to hold itself up. And thereafter, what I like to do is add in basically half of the substrate that you saw before. Now I'm just adding in the water so I can moisten the deeper layers of the substrate. So for me, this is quite an important step, because you'll often notice, especially with slings, they do like to burrow. Most species, if not all of them, I'm not sure, I can't say that I know for sure that everyone does, but giving them that sort of variation, the gradient in the humidity, in the moisture that's there available for them, they'll be able to dig down to whichever level feels safe and comfortable, as well whichever level of humidity that they need. Now I'm adding on the top layer of the substrate. This part's going to be a little bit drier than the damp substrate below. That's what's going to create your gradient for the sling to choose how deep they'd like to burrow, what type of humidity or moisture they need. And once again, we use that 1000 IQ move using the bottle cap and the tweezers just to compress that substrate slightly. It really doesn't have to be perfect, just most of the substrate needs to be compressed so that any burrows that the sling does choose to make, that they will be able to support themselves, that you don't risk the chance of one of these tunnels collapsing in. And then I'd like to take all the credit for this 1000 IQ move and use the paintbrush, a very good tool, use it quite a lot when it comes to moving around your tarantulas. As well when it comes to rehousing, especially the smaller ones, using it, as you can see there, I'm busy making a starter burrow in the corner there. It's an excellent tool, especially for the small slings, to be able to start basically pre-digging a tunnel for them. So this basically serves a dual purpose, firstly providing a nice safe place for the sling to retreat to during rehousing. As well, it sort of allows you to dictate where you would like the sling to start digging its burrow. It's not guaranteed that it's going to work, but it is worth a shot. In the background, you see there is a little piece of cork bark that I'm going to use sort of as a hide for the sling. Once again, I don't know why I didn't use my fingers for this, but apparently I forgot that I have fingers and decided only to use tweezers that night. So much so that I even elected to forgo the super tool that I mentioned earlier and the paintbrush used for making these types of burrows, and decided I'm going to dig with a tweezer. And then of course, if there's anything worth doing, it's worth overdoing, so a little bit more substrate. As you can see, the space is getting a little bit tight. This is something I'll probably come to regret in the future. And what the heck, why not just a little bit more? And with the tweezer having worked so perfectly, it left me with no other choice but to go back to the paintbrush to complete that all-important starter burrow under the cork bark. Then just a bag of green moss I picked up at a hobby store, small little piece just like that. Shove a little bit in the corner. We're going to use that basically to keep humidity in as well in the top. You can mist it down every now and then, plus it also makes it look less brown. And then I went and lost the green caps, and now it's yellow. That will be our new water dish. I'm putting it in once again using tweezers because apparently my fingers don't work. Me realizing as well that I added way too much moss in, having to clear it out so I can put it in our new water dish. There we go. I know it's not a fossorial species of tarantula that I'll be housing in here, but it is necessary, especially with slings, that we do give them enough substrate that they can burrow. That then brings us onto Moe's rehousing portion of this video. You'll see I've got a catch cup ready, I've got my pipette for watering the substrate, a little spray bottle, and there's Moe, all rocking, ready to go. There's that black spot of urticating hairs I spoke about earlier. You'll see, definitely not a plain brown tarantula. And if you look at that brown patch directly above the patch of urticating hairs on his abdomen, you'll see there's like a very, very faint, almost like a tiger stripe effect going on there as well, which is also something unique, something I haven't seen before. When I turn the cup now, you'll be able to pause and have a good look. Then always moving smoothly, gently, trying to handle with as much caution as possible. Place the cup on the container you're going to place the tarantula into, and softly, gently and smoothly guide him with intentional movements into the new container. Remember to take it slow, be careful with what you're doing, try not to cause any undue stress to the tarantula, and likewise try not to stress yourself out. This can be stressful, especially if it's the first time that you're doing it like it was here for me, but just taking a deep breath, thinking about what you're doing before you do it, ensures the tarantula ends up safe. Here's a look of him there in his new house. And once again, you can see that black patch of the urticating hairs and almost like a cross-shaped pattern just above that on the brown section of his abdomen. And then that shiny, oily looking carapace with the grey legs. So that's all for Moe. Now we move on to Mike Shinoda, the Lasiodora parahybana. There's a little cup that I have. You'll see I've put in ventilation holes on it, just using a pin, some cross ventilation all on the side. I'll be using the same substrate. There you can see I found the green bottle cap. It was actually inside of the substrate. Yeah, that was quite fun. Just gonna fill it up. Once again, I'm gonna do that like 2-layer method. I'm gonna split the substrate. I'm gonna first put in half of it, tamp it down nicely there. I'm just using something there for some coffee grounds. Spray it down a little bit with the water so we can get it nice and damp. So when I say damp, I don't mean soaking wet or swampy or anything like that, but decently saturated with water, because we will be putting a little bit dry substrate on top. That said, this is a much smaller sling. Mike Shinoda is only about 1 centimeter in diagonal leg span, so Mike definitely won't have that waxy cuticle layer that tarantulas develop as they get older, which helps them retain moisture, helps them keep humidity and keep their book lungs moist. So definitely you can do with a bit more humidity than a slightly larger sling like Moe. So now that I've added in that second layer of the dry substrate, just tamping everything down again to make sure it's nice and compact. Any burrow that the sling does decide to make, that it will be sturdy, that it's not going to collapse in on itself and maybe bury the sling. I know that tarantulas are actually quite adept at unburying themselves. Now if you look at the substrate in the tub there, you'll see 2 distinct layers, the moist layer at the bottom, slightly dry layer at the top, and I filled it up to just below the cross ventilation holes. Now using our trusty paintbrush, we're going to start making some starter burrows. I've decided to make 3. I'm going to make a shallower one that's sort of in the middle, one that's quite deep. That's going to allow the sling to obviously choose what kind of humidity it wants. As well, these are just suggestions for the tarantula. It doesn't mean that the tarantula is guaranteed to use any one of these pre-made burrows. It's just more of a suggestion, something that the tarantula could use if it wanted to. Now turning the tub to the side, you'll see there's the deep burrow, there's the shallow one, and then lastly we've got the medium burrow for the tarantula to use if it so decides to. Then I don't know what got a hold of me here. I turned from a guy keeping tarantulas into a chef, or maybe I thought I was Petco. Instead of putting sand for the texture, I put moss for the texture. A little too much moss, considering the spider is probably much smaller than any of the pieces that fell in there. And the part everybody's been waiting for, the rehousing of the 1 centimeter large spider. If you look very closely, you'll be able to see him there. He's the ball of fluff that was flicking his legs around like that. Maybe I named him after the wrong Mike, because he's throwing out moves just like the King of Pop would have. And with the all-important paintbrush, I point out the mold, and a mold that was also in the tub when I bought him. So I know that the tub I'm moving him into is not really much of an upgrade over what he had before, but it will be less one mold and less that mold, which was something that was worrying me, which is why I decided to rehouse him and why I decided to put in the cross ventilation, just so that we can prevent stuff like that. Once again, the rehousing procedure is very simple. You stay calm, the tarantula will hopefully stay calm. In this case, it was a little bit bolty. It looked like he was going to run away for a bit. I just took it slow, tried not to make him panic any more than what he already was. He fell a little bit there, but it wasn't much of a force, so he shouldn't be harmed at all. Let's see how Mike looks in his new house. He's also got that black patch of the urticating hairs on his abdomen. And if you ask me, he looked pretty relaxed. Now with the 2 successful rehousings out of the way, let's cut to some feeding videos.